All right, episode 31. Vic, how you doing?
Good. I've been traveling down to Dallas and back in 24 hours. Kind of lots of planes for investor dinner. You're in Vegas, I think. Is that right?
Yep, I'm in
Yeah.
Vegas. I'm
Yeah.
here with
So
my team, supporting them in their quest to become world champions at the World No-Gi Championship. I'm not competing. I'm in no shape. I'm still banged up from my competition back Labor Day,
yeah.
but here to support the team and really
Yeah.
enjoy being able to do that. It's kind of fun to still be on a team and compete
Yeah.
and support a bunch of
Yeah.
young
And
bucks going after
you're
it.
not very good shape is let head and shoulders above my shape day to day. So it's all relative.
Yeah, well, it's funny when you're in your mid to late 40s and you're trying to do this athlete thing. Not being in shape is not being in shape. It's being injured, which is something
Yeah.
that if you're not doing athlete stuff, you don't even think about injury like that. But I'm injured. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Right.
I'm in no fighting shape right now. I'm actually in pretty good shape other than that, but pretty beat up and got to let the body heal. Anyway, we have had a ton of things that have popped up. I'm excited for the stories we've got. We're going to close out the year with, but man, Fast and Furious into the end of the year.
Yeah. It's not. I think it's accelerating. If anything, there's a lot of news continuously. So again, it's useful to talk to you about all the news coming in and try to assess where it fits in our worldview and how it needs to shape it. So,
Yeah, yeah. Earlier this week, I was in Salt Lake City with the good folks at Celtic Bank, and it's great to have conversations with really, really smart, capable people from the banking world and kind of get their thoughts about where things are going. We're definitely in a place where I don't think anyone's got the answers on what the Fed is going to do next year. I think in the conversations I've had over the last 2 weeks, I've heard 20 different opinions about where we're going to go from a rate hike, rate cut, keep it flat perspective. So no one really knows where we're going. But yeah, so look, let's jump in. We got a lot to talk about. All right, so let's start with the Biden. Okay, first of all, out of nowhere every week we're talking about the White House having announcements. Like,
yeah,
do we just miss it for the first 25 episodes of the show, or is this a new thing that's happening in the run up to the election cycle next year?
yeah, it's a change. There's no question it's a change. I think that when they hit 1 year out from the uh, reelection, someone in the campaign decided to sort of buttress their healthcare policy and establish their platform of all the different healthcare things that they have been wanting to do or want to do. I don't, it's not a lot of new things, but they're sort of establishing their positions, I think. So it seems like to me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So this was a pretty comprehensive and somewhat complicated fact sheet that they rolled out. They're obviously talking about the big negotiation that they are going through as it pertains to drug costs, the top 10 drugs that they've decided to go after from negotiation. We've covered that,
Yep.
but they bundled in some stuff around Medicare Advantage. They bundled in some stuff around private equity.
Right.
And,
That was
and
the really surprising thing. They decided to take some shots at private equity.
yeah, yeah. So I kind of couldn't find the common thread here other than lowering cost, right? Just they're going after the private market. I don't care if you're a big drug company. I don't care if you're private equity. I don't care if you're a provider or a payer that's not playing by the rules with MA. We're going after everybody. And
Yeah.
we're negotiating here. We're reformatting, Medicare Advantage here, and we're going to start forcing some transparency with private equity and their ownership of provider assets. I mean, just kind of taking shots across the entire private market.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was, I mean, I'm completely cynical, but I think it was sort of lining up their campaign thing, positioning the Biden administration as looking out for the everyday man needing health care. And I'm obviously biased, but I think that private equity does a pretty good job bringing better care at reasonable prices. Not in every case. We've certainly covered some cases that weren't perfect, but in general, I think private equity does a good job with it. So
Yeah, I mean, we don't hear about the all the good things they do. We just hear about
right,
the really bad stories. And look, the
right,
truth is there are some bad stories out there, right? So, from a political perspective, it's a pretty they're pretty easy to pick on. No one's
yeah,
crying a
that's
river
right.
for super rich private equity people. So,
Right, right,
um,
exactly, exactly. It works. It pulls well.
yeah, yeah. And also, I've noticed I'm seeing more in memes, and now it's even in the first paragraph of this fact sheet, Bidenomics. So I guess, we're now going to really start hearing much more about Bidenomics as an agenda. There weren't, I think, I feel like I'm new to the party on that term, but I've seen it a lot in the last week.
Yeah, it's a made up term, and I'm not sure it means anything except what their campaign decides they want it to mean in this moment.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yes,
Well, look, I mean, it's a play on Reaganomics, right? I mean,
yeah, 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 and I think it's probably good that they are documenting everything they stand for, and that's a healthy thing. Then there'll be a spirited debate over time about how this stuff fits together.
yeah, absolutely. All right, so continuing on with massive change as it pertains to the cost of drugs, CVS has said that they are going to implement a cost plus model. Now, this comes on the heels of sort of a big expansion of cost plus drugs from Mark Cuban, and also we got to remember probably 2 months ago, Blue Cross Blue Shield moved away from CVS Caremark, stating that they were going to work with their own platforms at some combination of Amazon Cost Plus plus their own
I lost
platforms,
your
which
audio
we later
at the
on
beginning.
uncovered is Carelon RX, right, which is the wing of Elevance, which is the evolution of Anthem. So CVS not just gonna stay in the mud and continue on with what they've been doing. They're moving to a cost plus model too.
Yeah, I mean, this was really the shocking news this week to me. I think it's a great move, really smart. They sort of are reading the zeitgeist, like negative attention towards PBMs is building. We've talked about that at length, and CVS has done again what they have done several times around tobacco and other things, where they sort of get out in front of an issue that I think they believe is going to be a challenge, and they're willing to take near term challenges to sort of get aligned and be more of a healthcare partner, um, with their clients, with large plans, with employers, with patients. But it was really surprising because a lot of their, I don't have it, the stats, but a lot of their profits come through the PBM, and so it's great, I think, and it's really, it was surprising.
Yeah, yeah. So, to me, I think again, pace of change every single week. We're seeing some, you know, this is a major, major change, right? Like
Yeah,
we need to be really clear. They are taking the disruptors business model, and it's really, I mean, a couple of years old in terms of this being a disruptive business model. And we're talking about the second largest payer by volume, with retail footprint, with pharmacy, with massive pharmacy footprint. Just saying they're going cost plus. I mean that pretty much says that by the end of next year, we'll just be in a cost plus place. I mean, you're not going to be able to not do cost plus when CVS has sort of set the agenda that that's what they're doing.
yeah, I think that's why it was really shocking and really positive. Is it they're going to set a tone that's going to make it very difficult for other large PBMs to not offer at least this as an option.
Right.
And the transparency is going to be really good. I mean, if a drug costs a lot for CVS to acquire, if the cost of it to deliver is a lot, then the patients maybe have to pay through the payers that way. But having cost plus sort of really streamlines their incentives and puts them in a really positive kind of marketing position, which is great.
Yeah, and I think it also probably, we had that whole rundown of the the startup consortium of PBMs that are transparency is kind of one of their really big positioning statements. This seems like a real knock to their efforts, right? I mean, if transparency is a core value prop that they're offering, if the big guys just sort of decide we can do cost plus two, I think that really changes the the disruptive offering that they are bringing to the market, and now it's going to have to be much more focused on formularies that are very, very tightly designed for niche employment markets, as opposed to what the larger PBMs are going to do, which seems to be much more incremental in terms of the value that it provides.
That's right. It's also, I think, important to note that the innovator's dilemma. There aren't a lot of companies in the history of innovation that have been the dominant incumbent, like CVS with their market share, that are willing to react to a disruptive model like price transparency and cost plus. And it never works to try to defend your territory with something that is not popular and seems to be, not in the best interest of your customers. And yet big companies have almost never responded the way CVS has. So I completely agree. It destroys a lot of the potential value of these startups. And I just give CVS credit to like take that kind of hit. It reminds me of the tobacco decision, the not sell tobacco. It's the same kind of. It's probably bigger financially, but really a brave and I think smart thing to do.
Yeah. So, shifting into the pharma and biotech world, Roche has announced that they're going to buy Carmot Therapeutics for up to $3.1 billion in a bet on, you guessed it, obesity treatments. These obesity treatments really are eating up the market, and the mind share and all of the excitement and now all the M&A capital. So, what did you think when you saw this? We haven't heard the name Roche a whole lot as we've been talking about GLP-1s. It's been a whole lot of Novo Nordisk and Lilly.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think they're trying to get into the game. I believe I don't understand it totally, but I think it's different administration paths. Like not all shots, which is hard for patients. It's pills, and you might put it under your tongue, like different iterations, not approved yet, but could be really impactful. And I think smart to like get a play on it. Obesity is so comorbid with really every chronic disease that if you can find solutions, that's why we're seeing with the GLP-1s. This is a different pathway slightly, but it seems like it has a lot of science behind it. So pretty interesting.
Yeah, and then next story in the pharma world, Johnson & Johnson has hired thousands of data scientists really to revolutionize their efforts to discover drugs. I think this is something, quite frankly, I would have assumed everybody was working on, but I do think the number thousands of data scientists is something to take note of, because I think what that signals is really that we know that data scientists already are in short supply, right? Um, and we're already seeing the arms race that's happening in big tech as it pertains to AI, and just fighting for the absolute best talent. We start throwing pharmaceutical dollars in there as well, and quite frankly, I think a lot of data scientists who maybe are feel that they want to make sure that their efforts are being put to good use, right, to something that's going to improve humanity. I think pharma is going to be very, very attractive in pulling in those data scientists. I think it just makes it even tougher for smaller companies to get access to this great talent. I mean, thousands of data scientists going to Johnson & Johnson. That's a big number that people need to understand when they think about the total talent pool of data scientists that are available.
Yeah, and I think it is indicative of the pricing power is decreasing, and so instead of J&J complaining about it, they're sort of pretty aggressively moving to modify their R&D pipeline. And can they do things kind of in silicon that are much faster? You can do hundreds of thousands of trials, in simulation form. We've already talked about AlphaFold and the other open source platforms. I think it could be really a powerful new source of R&D potential drugs. And then, of course, they'll bring it into the lab and into human trials. But being able to do that after that in the simulation, it has had this effect. I think it could be really a powerful combination. So
Yeah.
I was excited about it. And then I think it's also important to note that J&J has been pretty innovative. Um, they have the whole J&J Labs network, which has not been so much data science yet, but they have that infrastructure. They can sort of immediately sort of add this to. It could, I think, it could be a really powerful sort of a machine over time.
Yeah, that's exactly right. One of our portfolio companies at Nova, View Health, went through J&J Labs early on
Yep.
and has always, spoken really highly about the support that they got through J&J Labs. And then our friends down at TMCX, we know that they've had that whole device, incubator in there, quietly for years now. I mean, maybe
Right.
maybe 10 years. They've been there. So Johnson and Johnson has definitely been on the ground at the startup level, when it comes to innovation for a lot longer than it was cool to do so. No question
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah. And I think JJ has a big advantage relative to other pharma companies that they really understand consumer branding. I mean,
That's right.
they, I don't exactly know the history, but they have a lot of consumer brands. They might have started off with consumer products, as opposed to some, like Roche, I think, is much more sold through the provider channels. And it just, as you think about sort of new products, and maybe some of them could be smaller markets, or something that has an effect, but it's sold directly to consumers. They just have a lot of optionality of where they use these discoveries. Could be pretty powerful.
That's right. That's right. And then final story. I saw a lot of debate on LinkedIn about this one. AstraZeneca launching a new company called Evanova, which is basically an entire digital health platform business to just revolutionize the way that they do clinical trials. Right. So this is a space that we see a ton of companies in the clinical trial space. I know a fair amount of this from our work again talking about View Health. Know a fair amount about a lot of the challenges that exist in clinical trials. But I think what's interesting here is that this is sort of like an Optum move, right? Where as opposed to just working with a bunch of CROs and vendors and small companies, no, AstraZeneca is saying we're going to build our own platform company, and that doesn't mean they won't work with all of these other businesses. I think what it means is they're investing real capital. They're going to create real talent. They're going to create a real strategic roadmap. They're probably going to try to sell these services across the entire pharmaceutical industry. And they're going to have a structured way within which they can embrace and absorb innovation from the market as opposed to have some small department. So this seems like another, pretty powerful, bold step coming from a really, really large incumbent.
Yeah, and it reminds me. I want to know disclosure, but I heard the first time a startup using a thing called reverse generative AI, which I didn't know what that was, but it's using generative AI to collect information from consumers or, sort of third party individuals at dramatic scale. So instead of a bunch of individuals hitting the AI and chatting with OpenAI, ChatGPT, instead they're generating, a much better surveying feedback mechanism, and it is sort of on the fly customized to the demographics and the needs and what they're asking about, um, for a different use case. But I think it could be interesting to do reverse generative AI. I got to figure out how to say that, in clinical trials, because you need to get information from all of these people trying out the drug, and a lot of it is, what is your weight? How are you feeling today? It's not necessarily that pharmaceutical related. It's just a lot of data gathering to fill out the survey. And I think AI might be a really effective way to do that, as opposed to what happens today, people calling and people with clipboards like walking around and trying to get people to come in. I think it's a pretty interesting use case. And I expect in 2024, we're going to see hundreds, thousands of different ways to utilize AI that we haven't really thought through yet. As bigger companies like AstraZeneca start kind of reimagining, okay, we have to do all of these clinical trials. How can we do it more effectively using some of these tools? And so them getting control of that and building up, like spinning up their own division that is branded separately, allows them to learn really quickly. And then I think you're right, sell it to other other platforms or CROs, or sort of leverage the knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's basically them identifying that there's a step change that's going to have to happen in the market around clinical trials. We can't do it the way we've been doing it with incremental changes. There's going to have to be a whole sort of revolution in the way that we approach clinical trials, and saying, listen, everyone's going to need it, but maybe everyone won't invest in it, right?
Right.
And so let's invest first. And we've seen what's happened in the payvider world, right? I mean, UHG being a decade ahead of everyone else on understanding that a data and services company was going to be a necessary, complementary component of an overall payer's platform. And now everyone has had to follow suit, but they're late to the game with that.
Right.
This could be the same thing. So we'll see,
Yeah.
right?
And it's interesting, the Biden administration, the Bidenomics, whatever it is, applied pressure to this industry around pricing. And at least I'm seeing J&J and AstraZeneca both try to figure out how can we get more drugs through the pipeline more cost effectively, so that they can deliver on their mission at a lower price point, which is great for everyone, really,
Yeah,
except for the companies that don't do that.
I certainly think making the pipeline more efficient, lower failure rate, fail faster, less expensive, less expensively, and then have a higher hit rate of things that get through. I think that's where the data science, as well as this kind of clinical trial upgrade platform, can really do both of those things.
Right. Yeah. No question.
All right, great. Let's end there and let Doug share a little bit about Jumpstart Foundry, and then we will get back to our topic of the month, AI.
Thanks, guys, for the opportunity to talk about our pre-seed fund, Jumpstart Foundry. My name is Doug Edwards, CEO of Jumpstart Health Investors, the parent company of Jumpstart Foundry. We're so excited to be able to talk about early stage venture investing, certainly the need for us to change the crazy world of healthcare in the United States. We are spending 20% of our GDP, north of $4 trillion a year, on healthcare with suboptimal outcomes. Jumpstart Foundry exists to help us find and identify and invest in innovative companies that are going to make a difference in healthcare in our country. Every year, Jumpstart Foundry invests a fund, raises a fund, and deploys that across 30, 40, 50 assets every year, allowing ease of access for our limited partners to invest to help us make something better in healthcare. Some of the benefits of Jumpstart Foundry is there's no management fees. We deploy all the capital that's raised every year in the fund. We find the best and brightest, typically around single-digit percentage of companies that apply for funding from Jumpstart, and we invest in the most incredible, robust, innovative solutions and founders in the United States. Over the last 9 years, Jumpstart Foundry has invested in nearly 200 early-stage, pre-seed stage companies in the country. Through those most innovative solutions that Jumpstart Foundry invests in, we also provide great returns and a great experience for our limited partners. We partner with AngelList to administer the fund, making that ease of access not only with low minimums, but the ease of investing in venture much better. We all know that healthcare is broken. Everyone deserves better. Come alongside us with Jumpstart Foundry, invest in making the future of healthcare better, and make something better in healthcare. Thank you, guys. Now back to the show.
All right. So, Vic, you and I have been talking a lot about Google Cloud, not so much on the show, but just as I've been digging in and talking to, real world data scientists who are doing real work in the space. And we are learning a lot about the power of Google Cloud. And I think as we've been learning that, we've been sensing that Google is a lot stronger in AI than I think most people are giving them credit for. And there's a lot of hype around OpenAI, and fair play. I mean, GPT-4 and Turbo and everything they showed at Dev Day was incredible. And the fact that it wasn't just a presentation, but they literally rolled it out that day, super powerful, right? But this rollout of Gemini, I think, is just really, really impressive. And I should qualify that. It's not fully rolled out yet, right? They put together a video kind of demonstrating how Gemini works, and they've started to roll it out behind Bard as an interface. But I would say it's not really in full general availability yet. But what they showed in that that teaser video about what Gemini can do is certainly a full sort of version ahead of what anyone else is doing in generative AI today.
Yeah, no question. I think, well, first of all, again, I think it's useful for people to watch this 3 or 4 minute video just to get. You can't really appreciate it unless you see it. But it's what I was expecting. I think a lot of people were expecting. Of course, OpenAI came to the market, surprised everyone a year ago, a little over a year ago, and then Bard was Google's answer maybe 3 months after that, last spring. I was expecting, with all of Google's talent and AlphaFold and their DeepMind strength, that they'd have something really powerful to respond. And I think even though it's Google, it's still a very large company with bureaucracy, and Bard was, pretty disappointing. It's just not as good. And this is where I think I've seen for the first time the power of their technology really beginning to take shape. As you said, I can't use it on whatever I want to use it on yet, but the multimodal is sort of a quantum shift, a step function shift from what it was before. I mean, you should watch the video, but they had this demo of a physics, like a high school physics problem set, and the made-up student had handwritten answers with multiple steps trying to figure out the physics. And they show a picture of the homework and the work, the whole assignment, to Gemini, and it's incredible. Like it understands it. It understands the step by step. It kind of grades it, and then gives the hypothetical student, like advice on not just what the answer is, but what the steps maybe could be that would be the way to get to the answer. Just one of the use cases, but really that multimodal thing is I think a game changer.
Yeah, and it seems, I would imagine there are limitations to this, and this is where they've really sort of built an application layer on top of the LLM to sort of meet specific use cases. But you can see where they're starting to embed agent-like functionality, right? The part in the multimodal where Gemini created a product requirement document,
Yeah,
and then
right.
used that product requirement document. It's like it's creating steps that right now in ChatGPT you pretty much have to sort of do yourself.
Yeah,
You send it something, it gives you an answer. You have to kind of take that answer and then often Microsoft Word or something like that, reshape it, reform it, kind of prime it, cue it a little bit, and then send it back in and hope that you get the sort of next step in the process. But you have to kind of stitch that process together yourself. Gemini is doing that on its own. I remember I spent, I don't know, an entire Saturday one day just watching all these YouTube videos telling me about all this prompt engineering stuff and
yeah,
all these different methods and how I needed to orchestrate my prompts such that I could get ChatGPT to give me the thing. And it's like, that's about to be useless
yeah,
in about a month with Gemini. And I think that rate of change where you spend the time to try to learn a skill to use a new technology, and legit 60 days later it's a useless skill.
right.
That's
Yeah,
the part
I took an entire course on Coursera about prompt engineering,
right.
and it's complex and powerful. And now Gemini infers what I want and just gives it to me. And it's really, I mean, at least in the demo, which maybe is, my assumption is it's going to be what they launch, but it's a demo, right? So, but it was fast, like bang, and it releases, it presents the UI of a product like interaction. It's built the product in the half second behind the scenes. And then the other thing I think is really interesting is they're already embedded into Android. But the other thing that Google has is Android. Now they've outsourced it, and lots of people use Android, but Google still created it and has a lot of hooks into it. I use a Pixel phone, and so that integration directly into the operating system of the phone is just different. I mean, I think it's OpenAI doesn't have that kind of phone depth, and Apple doesn't have the same. I haven't seen the same AI strength, and so it's exciting to see a big player like Google stepping up. It'll make OpenAI better, and I'm not sure that they can't respond. But it's gonna drive innovation even faster than it has been already, which is going to be exciting, but also hard to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean the point is this is moving incredibly fast, and just sort of two other anecdotes I'll say because there's not a lot of meat behind them, but one is we're starting to get glimpses of Apple's efforts in LLMs. So you mentioned Apple. There's been a couple of articles. Obviously, Apple
Yeah, I haven't really
Apple
seen
moves.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll share it with you later. But Apple moves very differently from the rest of these companies. That they're not going to be pulled into announcing something off their schedule, right? You know what I
right.
mean? They're going to let everyone do their thing and then just kind of figure out how they want to integrate, new technology into their overall platform and the aura that they have. But there are some rumors starting to buzz around Apple's LLM efforts, and also Grok is being rolled out today to Premium Plus members in the United States. And so that's going to be rolled out over the next week. So Twitter now
Yeah.
getting fully in the LLM game. And I got to say, Vic, I've been spending a lot more time on X over the last 2 weeks. And I'm going to start calling it X because
Yeah.
it,
We need to
it's, it,
shift over. Yeah.
yeah. And also, I think it's important to recognize just how much work Elon has done on the product there. It was pretty rough going in the early parts of him taking over the product.
Mm.
But the product is a different product than Twitter was now. It,
Yeah.
it, it really is. You know, and now with the addition of AI in there, I mean, the bottom line is there's no place else that you can get up to the minute information on what is happening in this fast accelerating world. It's the only place that you can get it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, no other platform is designed to push out information in as organized of a way. And I actually did something pretty interesting, which is I removed all of the people I was following. So I'm not following
Mm.
anybody on Twitter anymore, including
Really?
you. I'm
Oh,
not following anyone except for like just X and Elon and just like the
just the
official X
core
company
X
stuff.
team.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But what I've done is I've organized all of the people that I was previously following into lists, so I can more effectively
Yeah. You can jump
consume.
into, I want to look at AI, what's going on in AI, or I want to look
Exactly.
on what's going on in international politics or whatever. You have different
That you
lists.
got it.
Yeah.
You got it. And following in all of that into one stream just wasn't working for me. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like I wasn't trying to hurt anyone's feelings. Just from an organization perspective, I needed it in lists. But here's what's really interesting. When I did that, they have this for you stream of
Yeah.
information, and the for you actually got better.
Hmm. That's
Like
interesting.
Yeah, like it understood what I was trying to do in terms of organizing all these different folks
Hmm.
into different lists, and now it's serving up people that are helping me to
That fit
populate
one of
my
those
different
categories.
lists.
That fit a
Yes.
category. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I think we're gonna have to spend a little bit more time watching what's going
Yeah.
on X, especially as it pertains to the acceleration of AI. So I just
Yeah.
wanted to.
Well, I mean, I'll
It's a
say
little
that
divergent,
I
but
I became a premium. It's $8 a month or something. I became a premium subscriber just to try to support free and open news information from the crowd, even though I wasn't really getting $8 worth out of it. But it's gotten a lot better. I mean, to your point, it's gotten a lot better for me to keep up with things. I don't have it organized like that. I might need to look at that. And then I heard Elon on a podcast. His tweets or his posts are, for some purpose. But when you hear him long form, he's really damn smart. And he was describing why he shifted the name. And he said basically, you know, tweets and Twitter was good when everything was 140 characters. It's like a bunch of little sparrows tweeting around. But now they have spaces where it's long form audio, and they have much bigger content. You can post entire blogs on there, and I think he's going to keep coming out with new products. He was talking about the product roadmap, and so I kind of understand shifting the brand. Like it was too locked in at the old, everything's 140 characters, and it's not just his ego. He has a plan, and I think we definitely need to follow it. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. I mean, we'll spare our listeners, but I do want to talk to you offline about it because there's quite a lot going on over there on that platform.
Yep.
Okay, so to keep rolling on AI as it pertains to healthcare, Meta and IBM, who I think, well, first of all, IBM, I mean, they're basically a consulting company, but Meta, look, they're in the game, but as we've discussed, they are crushing it financially, and they've got a very specific surface area that they're going to deploy their AI into, which is they're going to deploy it into Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp, right? So
Yeah.
for them, they don't have to kind of play this, we need a generative AI chatbot, because that's not necessarily social, right? I mean, I think OpenAI was a threat to Google much more than it ever was to Meta.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so they are not chasing AI sort of in the same way, but I think they also understand it is a massively disruptive technology and they have to be very, very involved in it. So they've partnered with IBM to create this AI alliance, and there's a bunch of other organizations that are part of this. But basically, the effort here is to say we need to make sure that there's a lot of AI that is open source. That's effectively what it is. They're going to get a lot of great press from it because they're being attacked a ton right now for all of their activity as it pertains to minors.
Right.
They're getting the tremendous bad press right now on that.
Yeah, which
that
maybe
front.
I think they maybe deserve. But on this front, it's great for the AI movement to have an open source alternative. Even if I never use the open source alternatives, it keeps everyone honest, and having that out there is really healthy. I think it was interesting that ServiceNow, which is a Nashville-based company, is signed up. They're going to use it for basically working with large software as a service platforms to make sure you renew or you have questions. And I just think it's just another sign that there's going to be an explosion of these tools. And having an open source alternative is positive, I think, for everyone, unless you are a shareholder of Microsoft.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, I just think it's noteworthy that Meta is sort of partnering in this way with the big old school,
Yeah.
software as a service and consulting companies. I just find that to be an interesting pairing.
Yeah.
And
And
we'll see
IBM
where it goes.
Watson, IBM Watson was early, way too
Yeah.
early, and it didn't work.
No.
But IBM has a lot of global reach, and I think they have a lot of contacts, and they can be helpful in sort of getting this out there.
They are very influential in the enterprise.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. So that'll be interesting. All right. And moving into sort of our final segment, we're going to kind of talk about what's happening at the end of the year leading into 2024 from an economy perspective, but not just broadly, but specifically as it pertains to our world, which is sort of the intersection of venture capital and healthcare. And Institutional Investor published a story yesterday, and the headline is "Big VC funds are underperforming smaller ones and their future is dim." This is coming out right on the heels of the news that broke on The Information that OpenView, sort of a long-standing big brand out of Boston in the VC space, just abruptly out of nowhere closed the doors. Said fired just about everybody. Said they're not doing any more investments and closed their doors. I mean, that is a shocking development, but at the same time, we knew the write-downs were coming. We've been talking about the down rounds that are happening in the Series D and the Series C and even the Series B space. We know who was writing those checks. It's these billion-dollar-plus VC firms that were writing these checks. We've talked about the implosion of Olive. We've talked, we've been chronicling.
I mean, back to Sequoia. I mean, Sequoia breaking up,
Yeah.
was the first time I started seeing, okay, big firms are admitting that they would be better off smaller, able to sort of be more lean.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, for this to come out on Institutional Investor, sort of a very clear statement about 2024, big funds are underperforming smaller funds and their future is dim. I mean, yikes. But at the same time, I mean, I think you and we constantly sort of wonder, how would we operate our business if somebody gave us $1 billion to manage? I mean, like, I don't think we have to change our whole operating model,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. That's right. I mean, the real place where I think the best impact is in the early stage, and companies just can't absorb 50, $100 million. And it's hard to scale a VC business where you can't have 300 partners. It doesn't work like that. And so I think this is not surprising that it is coming out. It is surprising where it came out. Institutional Investor publishing it is really going to be impactful, because I mean, this is what everybody reads, and they're going to be asking hard questions of their consultants, which couldn't happen to a better group of guys, and then hopefully come to firms like Jumpstart that are big enough to have an impact, but not wasting just throwing money around.
Yeah, but isn't this also a problem for institutional investors who want to be in VC because they need to deploy a lot of money? I mean, that's kind of why they liked the big funds, right? Because it's like, this is easy for me, right? Hey, big brand that, nobody, at least historically, nobody ever got fired for investing in
Right.
big brand X, right? I'm going to just allocate 500 million to you. That's nice and easy. It's the easy button for me. And and quite frankly, I look like a champ because I got a big allocation with you. Right.
Yeah. Right.
Now that whole story is being turned on its head.
Yeah. And the consultants should do their job and figure out who is the group of 5, 10, 15 VCs that are not that well known that you should allocate a piece of that to. And I mean, if it's too easy, maybe it's not going to work. And so obviously I'm completely biased in this space because I've been in the smaller venture space for a long time. But yes, big institutions need to deploy capital, but they need to deploy it with managers that are going to generate alpha. And I think the large VCs have a multi-year track record over several funds of not doing that.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting headwind for the VC industry going into 2024. Let's shift to healthcare. So, published on Fierce Healthcare yesterday, basically a republishing of a Deloitte study that says that a very, very tough 2024 is on the horizon, and it lists basically a series of different areas where challenges are going to occur. And I'll just sort of read these off: M&A and consolidation, generative AI and digital transformation, workforce challenges, outsourcing and offshoring, affordability, and empowered consumers. So I feel like of those five, we talk a lot about the first three. We talk a lot about M&A and consolidation, a lot about generative AI, and a lot about workforce challenges.
Yeah.
We don't talk a whole lot about outsourcing and offshoring. And maybe that's just because we're not internal operators and incumbents, right? But that is, I think, an interesting dynamic that is going to play a big part in next year. And then affordability and empowered consumers. I mean, I think we talk about that, but we talk about it sort of underlying everything. We don't necessarily call out that very specific issue. But, what are your thoughts about those five different things that Deloitte pulled out?
Yeah, I agree with you. The first three we cover every week. And the last two, I kind of feel like are opposites. We're like outsourcing and offshoring, and they list revenue cycle, billing claims, HR. Like the for-profit groups have largely already done that. Like maybe they can squeeze another couple pennies out, but I feel like that trend is continuing, of course, but has been going on for a long time. And I think it's fine, but I'm not that excited. It's way out on the spectrum. We've already been doing it. We have one last story, which is Moody's. It's in healthcare finance, but Moody's came out with an article or a view that of their 190 plus companies that they follow, 20% of them, 21% are at risk of default in a very scary sort of perspective. So the way the article reads, it's 21% are in their negative and lower risk category, which is up from about 18% last year. So it's just another sign that there's a lot of weakness in the healthcare space, especially around debt, highly leveraged debt-based companies. Unfortunately, this is a combination of private equity and nonprofits. And so kind of a sign of the times. 2024 is going to be a year of a lot of change. And I'm hopeful that we turn it around. Hopefully we can use AI and get some financing and turn the tide. But there continue to be significant debt refinancing risks in the immediate future, the next 6 to 12 months. So that is the show for today. Great to have everyone on, and we'll be back next week. Thank you. Bye.